All right, arterial disorders. Now let me ask you a question. Arteries carry what kind of blood? Arteries carry oxygenated blood, okay? Oxygenated blood, that seems so simple, right? And veins carry what kind of blood? That's your deoxygenated, all right? I'm going to come back to that in just a minute. If you have atherosclerosis in one place, you have it everywhere, okay? It is a medical emergency if you have an acute arterial occlusion, numb, cold, pain, no pulse. That's a medical emergency because can you lose your extremity? Yes. All right, arterial disorders are more symptomatic in lower extremities, and one major sign of an arterial problem is intermittent claudication. That's pain. Now let me explain how that works. Let's pretend that we decide to go for a walk today, really fast, okay? And let's say I have an arterial problem in my right leg, but I do not know it yet. So I take out and I start walking really fast. When I'm walking fast, what do I do to the oxygen demands in both of my legs? I'm increasing it. But in my right leg where I have this arterial problem, can I deliver? No, because I have an arterial problem. So in this leg, distal to my problem, my arterial problem, I'm going to switch from aerobic metabolism with oxygen to anaerobic, which means without oxygen. And we all memorized in nursing school, or before we ever got in nursing school, that the end product of anaerobic metabolism is a buildup of what? Lactic acid. That's what hurts. It's kind of like this, girls. You remember that one time you did that exercise tape? What'd that lady say? Make it burn, right? And that's why we only did it one time, because it hurt, right? That's the buildup of lactic acid. Now, arterial blood isn't getting to the tissue, so the area is going to feel cold or numb. Put a big old star by decreased peripheral pulses. The area is going to atrophy because it's not being fed. Anytime you hear a bruit or see the word bruit, you need to think turbulent blood flow. Think turbulent blood flow. Skin and nail changes, and yes, ulcerations can occur too. Now, rest pain means you have a severe obstruction. Y'all, if you are having rest pain at rest, are you doing anything to increase oxygen demands? No, and if you start hurting, then you know you've got it bad. Now, I want you to read the next sentence, and let's see what kind, to yourself, and let's see what kind of answer you come up with. Okay, here I go again. I have an arterial problem. If I have an arterial problem, blood is having trouble getting where, y'all? All the way down to the tips of my toes. All right. So if you elevated the affected arterial problem extremity, you just made it even worse. You don't elevate artery problems. You just made it worse. We do not elevate artery problems. What do we do with artery problems? Dependent is the word. That means dangle the extremity or their leg over the side of the bed. Dependent. Dangle their leg over the side of the bed to promote circulation. You elevate veins. But doesn't it always sound right? Anytime you get a vascular question, elevate it. No matter what it is, just elevate it. You don't elevate arteries, you elevate vein problems to enhance venous return, which we're going to talk about in just a second. Arterial disorders of the lower extremities are usually treated with either angioplasty, balloon, right? That's the balloon thing. Or endarterectomy, which is surgery. The doctor will decide which one is going to be done. But the purpose of both of those procedures is to improve circulation, right? Enhance circulation. Now, let me give you a hint, a test-taking strategy on how to get artery questions right. First of all, you have got to keep it in your brain that arteries carry oxygenated blood. So if you've got an artery problem, you're not getting oxygenation. Okay. Another thing that you've got to remember is this. First of all, you got to remember what the artery is feeding. For instance, if I got a radial artery here, what is it feeding? My hand, my fingers. My carotids feed my brain. My abdominal aorta feeds everything from waist down. Okay. So that's how you hone in on the answers. You figure out what that artery is feeding. If you've heard of the artery. Okay. Sometimes they'll make up names of arteries that you've never heard of before. And then you just got to think oxygenation's being interrupted. Okay. I just had a carotid endarterectomy. How could you tell if the procedure were a success? Would you check my temporal pulse, check out my LOC, or check out my hair? Ask your friend. Tell me. Priority would be what? LOC, because the most important thing is my brain. But you won't believe the people. Didn't temporal artery sound good? I'm going to check this pulse here. Brain's more important than this, okay? And then some people will say, well, if their hair's not shiny, they're not getting, who cares about your hair? You can go the rest of your life without hair and not die. Now, let's look at Buerger's disease. These are two little weird artery problems. That's why I've got them separated out, okay? All right, the first things that we talked about were just artery stuff in general, okay? Now, Buerger's disease is inflammation of veins and arteries, but it is classified as an arterial disorder. This is the one men get, and it's related to heavy smoking, getting too cold, or emotional upset. Out beside all of those things right there, write the word vasoconstriction in big letters. Vasoconstriction. Y'all, when you vasoconstrict an artery, what do you cut off? Oxygen, circulation. All right, lower extremities, sometimes the fingers, usually the toes. Usually the toes. Now, here's the scenario I always tell here. Girls, what do a lot of men do on Monday night? Watch football on their big screen TV in their little bitty den, right? Okay? So we're watching TV, and maybe your man has got this problem, Buerger's disease, and he's in there watching the football game, and he might be smoking too and getting mad at the ball game and screaming and hollering. You're in the kitchen trying to listen to a tape for a nursing test, okay? And he's getting all mad and upset at the ball game, and finally halftime comes, and he flops down in his recliner, and he says, honey, what? My toes just went numb. What does she say? I don't care, because the doctor just said if you would quit all that smoking and quit all that fussing, your toes would stop going numb. Y'all, people don't care about numb toes, do they? Because he knows he can sit there during halftime and rub on his toes and get the feeling back. But if this goes on repetitively, Monday night after Monday night after Monday night, could this lead to ischemia? Necrosis? Black crunchy toes that fall off in the floor? Then they start worrying about it when their toes start looking ugly. And their children are embarrassed of them to wear their Birkenstocks in public and that sort of thing, okay? Then people worry, well, it's too late then. Treatment, stop smoking, avoid the cold. You do whatever you have to do to avoid the cause. That's the name of the game. Avoid the cause. Hydration is very important. You see, you want the blood to be very, very, very thin so the blood can get down in all those little bitty tiny micro vessels that are down in the lower extremities. Wear shoes that fit well and avoid trauma to the feet. Well, that sounds like who? The diabetic. Foot care, again, same thing. They might do surgery, and yes, gangrene and amputation can occur. Now, once again, Raynaud's disease is the same exact thing as what we've already talked about, but this is what I want you to write down. Female fingers. Female fingers. Same exact thing happens. Once again, they get upset and they vasoconstrict. Write the word vasoconstriction down. But they're vasoconstricting in their fingertips, you see. Cutting off the circulation to their fingertips, so they wind up with black, crunchy, pretty fingers, you see. All right? Same thing. Avoid the cause. If you ever got a test question that said this lady, every time she reaches into the freezer, her hands had these terrible episodes of pain. What do you tell her to do? And don't say, don't reach into the freezer. Wear gloves. You do whatever you have to do to avoid the cause. All right. Now, in your handout, we've got two different charts for you. One is on chronic arterial insufficiency, and one is on chronic venous insufficiency. I just put those in there so you can see the major differences in the two. The last thing I want to talk about, though, is DVT. If you'll turn to your DVT page. Causes: blood stasis, vessel injury, blood coagulation problems. Now, here's the deal with vein problems. The blood can get to the tissue, it just can't get away. It's trapped. So it sits there. Y'all, if blood can get to the tissue okay, are we having trouble oxygenating an extremity? No. So, see, it is wrong to pick oxygen with vein troubles, isn't it? It's wrong, but it always sounds right because it's vascular. 2 liters by nasal cannula. It's wrong. Signs and symptoms: edema, tenderness, positive Homans. You got to be careful checking the Homans, because can you dislodge a clot? That's what I'm scared of. And warmth can occur. And I've listed for you all the little medicines that they use to treat DVT, and then your lab work and that sort of thing that you've got to know. Unfortunately, those are some things you just have to memorize. As a rule in this class, I don't believe in memorization. But when it comes to things like this, there's a certain group of information you just got to memorize, and that's part of it, okay? Now drop all the way down to treatment. Surgery, well, not definitely, but bed rest definitely. They might do surgery, it just depends. You're definitely going to be on bed rest, though, because we don't want to dislodge the clot. Elevate and TED hose to increase venous return and decrease pooling. Used with TED hose, or used with SCDs many times. With a known clot, TEDs or SCDs may not be used because you don't want to compress a known clot, do you? That could dislodge it. Warm, moist heat to decrease inflammation. Now, some books will say don't use much heat, because if you use too much heat, that vasodilates, that gets more blood to go into that area, and you could dislodge the clot. That's why I said to use warm, moist heat to decrease inflammation. You see, y'all, when blood is sitting out here in your tissue, it starts irritating the tissue and eating away at the tissue. It's an irritant. And that's why people get chronic venous stasis ulcers. So warm, moist heat's okay. Prevention is the key with DVT. Ambulation, hydration, isometrics, SCDs. All right, enough on the cardiovascular system.